Good morning. Good morning. How are we all doing out there today?
Good morning, Steve.
Oh, I love it, Linda. I love it when you bring the energy. Wednesday morning, here we go. Anybody have something going positive in their world that they'd like to share with us?
Oh, pick me.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And
Okay,
just,
well,
I
I'm
know we,
delight
I know we always struggle, guys, for hand raising. And Linda, I think you know how to raise your hand, but I just love the excitement anyway. But just remember, if you go into, what is it, reactions, I believe, is where you guys can raise your hand because I think we struggle with that on most days. So reactions is where you can find that. Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, well, I am delighted to say that, yesterday we did a showing on, one of our beautiful listings, and, an offer came forth, last night. Hallelujah. And then we also received, a phone call, that, an offer is coming through on our $1.2 million listing, that we've had up for less than a month, and so it's a big day. Woo!
I love it. I love it. I love when we're putting deals together, and I love when we're getting some wins. Appreciate you getting us started. Who's got something going on in one of their deals that maybe isn't going so well, or something that you learned from a transaction that'd be a good share for the group? What do we have? Who's got something? Go ahead, Steve.
So, escalation clauses. Not a big fan. I see a lot of agents are not fans of escalation clauses. Um, I love them for both sides because obviously it gets everybody, the listing side, they get more money for their client and for their commission. And it gives on the buy side, the last out to try to beat the highest and best. But I've been told that a lot of listing agents hate them. They don't like to entertain them. And I had one in play yesterday. We ended up not getting the deal because it went over asking and it was an investment property. So my buyer wasn't going to go that high anyways. But the feedback I got, because I call after and, we lost out on a rehab loan versus cash, which cash is king. So I already kind of prepped my buyer for that disappointment. And he had a max number that I didn't think was going to get us to the finish line anyways. But the feedback I got was if you're going to do an escalation clause, you shouldn't come in to start under full asking price. And the sellers were upset because it was as if we don't want to have to pay you what you want unless we have to, which I think that's any consumer. I think any buyer doesn't want to pay more than they could have
Yeah,
paid,
let's let,
whether
let's talk it through. This is a good one, Steve. I'd like to hear from some of the strong listing agents. What are you thinking on this? I've got my 2 cents, but
How do you raise your hand in here?
it's under reactions, Jen. But you can go ahead. You got the mic.
I think that if somebody doesn't want an escalation clause, then it's probably because there's several offers around the same amount, or they were just hoping for something better and they want you to just give a number. But otherwise, I think that they're good, especially if you have the amount that you're willing to go up to. But I think that if they're not accepting it, it's because they don't have anything that high.
It's my exact thoughts. There's nothing wrong with an escalation clause for an offer. It's an offer, right? And my take is when agents aren't happy with escalation clause because they've got nothing to escalate it against. And so exactly like you said, Steve, the consumer is trying not to overpay, right? And when you don't have offers that are going to make that thing escalate, all of a sudden, we're not overpaying. So not in the best interest of the seller, but I'd rather see an offer with an escalation than no offer at all. See a couple other hands up. Linda, was yours still lingering from your initial conversation, or did you have some thoughts on this?
Um, I like them very, very much. To Steve's point, I think they're great to use either on the buy side or the sale side. So, and to Jen's point, it sort of shows your hand a little bit. If you don't have too many other offers or any offers. So I think I think they're wonderful. And it might be that some agents don't like them because then they start getting into a zone where they're concerned about appraisals. And so that's where it can, become a little tricky, but that's when you have to really talk to your sellers about what could happen with it if they want to accept a higher, keep going higher on their offer, and discuss, if we do accept this, assuming that there are multiple offers and it is driving it up into sort of a dangerous zone, here's how this could play out. And then you have to realistically in your mind decide what you're going to do in the event that it does not appraise this high. But I think it's really critical, again, just from the listing perspective, it's all about the strength of the offeror, right? And it's really easy to just let escalation writers and driving price up be very exciting to your seller, but look at the strength of the offer and is this a deal that's going to go through, or is it just somebody who wants it and is throwing out a number and they just are saying anything, but they could get buyer's remorse in the end, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things to consider if they start thinking, oh, well, I've overpaid for it. So it just requires more work on the part of the listing agent in talking through scenarios with their sellers if there are multiple offers that are driving the thing up. And just, then you have to look at these are the possible outcomes, and let's play this through what could happen and what realistically will happen. And if this plays through, then how will we handle it? So it just requires, I think, more work on the part of a listing agent, and maybe that's why some aren't interested.
I'm sure they'd be interested if you were going to escalate $10,000 over their currently highest and best offer, which was already over listing price. And right, it all comes back to the terms. How are they not going to be happy with an escalation that's $10,000 over what they have?
Right.
That's at the end of the day. Chris, your hand's been up for a while. What do you got?
I feel very strongly on this topic, and I'll
Well,
even
first
let you
first
see.
of all, can I just say thank you for turning the video on? Because it just
Well,
makes
I
this.
was naked before, Steve. You probably wouldn't have wanted it.
All right. Well, I would love to hear your thoughts. Go ahead.
Um, to what Linda said and Jen, like I love escalation clauses. I honestly do for my buyers and for my sellers. What was said in the beginning by the first agent about coming in under asking, and then escalating, that is 100% an insult. Like I would think that would be a terrible thing for an agent to do because you're saying that you believe this house is worth up to this amount and that's what you'll pay for it, but then you're coming in under. So it's almost like you want to screw them to start off. That's never going to be a happy moment for a seller. So that's the first thing. The second thing is you said, who's not going to love something 10,000 over what they have? Well, they're only escalating 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. So even if there is one that's 10,000 over, it's not going to go there. It's only going to go to
No,
whatever the
my
rest.
my point on that one is that number doesn't have to be 1,000. We could say we'll go 10,000 over the next highest, right? So you could, depending how it's structured. I'm saying you're right. If the number's 310 on a 300 and I'm only going 1,000 over, but if I go 10,000 over, if I go 5,000 over, like those are big jumps in my mind, and there'd be no reason not to like an offer like that.
Well,
You know,
I do 2,000 with my buyers, and
yep.
then kind of to the point before me, if it's you're going to have information to back that up as far as appraisal goes. Like, are you willing to, eat part of the appraisal? What is your terms and conditions? And like what was said before me, it's very much where you need a good listing agent that's going to look at all the terms because you have these buyers agents that come in hot. I'm going to give you 300 for a house that's worth 250. Yippee. That's it.
Yeah, no, and just don't feel, guys. I think every single deal, it's a new deal, it's new terms, it's a new buyer, it's a new buyer and their desire to buy this house, right? So if your typical escalation is $1,000 over or $2,000 over, but you've got a current buyer that just look, Steve, I gotta have this house. Then escalate $5,000 over the highest, 7,500 over, right? Just explain to your buyer, hey, here's the things, right, that can make a difference. So you might come in even higher than those numbers, and you could have, like Linda said, appraisal issues, but it's all about the terms and how strong you want to make it. Lauren, I think you were next.
So I'm on the same train with everybody. Love escalations. And for the fact of I love negotiations as part of the process, right? I think it is such an exciting part of it. Feeling like, you're getting maybe some win somewhere, something like that. And so being strong in negotiation skills, using additional terms, I'm all for it.
Steve, did you have some more thoughts?
Yeah, just to clarify, like to Chris's point of coming in, it's an insult. So I should mention that I did have a conversation with the listing agent and let them know. So this was a rehab property, cash or rehab only. And I let her know. I said, listen, it's lower than asking. I said, we're coming in with an offer. I said, we're rehabbing, flipping this. I said, the numbers have to work for my buyer. We're not trying to insult anybody, but he has a number in mind that makes sense, and I'm not sure what that number is because, I'm not going to disclose that anyways, but he may be willing to beat the highest and best. That's why we put the escalation in. So I always, if I know it's low, I try to do damage control and try to tell him like, hey, we're not trying to offend anybody, but this is where the numbers come in to start. Maybe we can beat your best one. So my buyer was like, there's no way anybody rehabbing this is coming in at asking. Otherwise, they're not flipping it. They're doing it to fix it up and live in it. So
Yeah,
he
so
knows.
on something like that, Steve, maybe we don't use the escalation. We just come in, just like you said, right? We contact the listing agent, we send over the comps. Hey, this is where we think this property's worth. My guy's going to put $100,000 into this to rehab it, right? Here's the comps that I pulled. This is what we think it's worth. We're not lowballing you. This is just with the amount of work it needs. Here's where we think. If you have some comps that say different, send them over, right? My buyer likes it. Like, these are the numbers where he thinks it works. Maybe our value's off a little bit. If you can show me that your number is actually the right number, even with the rehab, we'll take a look at it. So it never has to be just cut and dry. It's just, hey, this is where my buyer feels comfortable based on the amount of money he puts in. This is where we think it's worth. We could be wrong. Maybe I missed a couple of comps. Show me why it's worth more, and I'll present it back to my buyer. So maybe we didn't need to go escalation on this one. Chris.
Well, 100%. If there's other offers on the table and you say that to me, I'm going to say, I'm not putting time into educating you on my listing when I have four other offers. Like, and if you're coming in without any other offers on the table, why would you even be using an escalation clause? So that is confusing to me.
Yeah, I think we definitely got to know, right? What are we competing against, right? If we got a property that's sitting and it needs a lot of rehab, typically, unless it's brand new to market, you're not competing against anybody. So now it's just what is this property really worth? Because the market has basically said, we haven't found a buyer yet. We haven't had a buyer and a seller agree on what this property is worth, right? And some of these properties that need the rehab, they can, have wide ranges on what it's really actually worth. So these can be difficult. But I would agree with Chris. Like, if it's early and we got a lot of activity, we can't be lowballing. And now maybe it is time to ask for escalation, and probably not a time where you can say, prove that it's worth more to me, right? But it's when it's sitting, which is what this kind of sounded like, right? This is sitting, it needs a lot of work. So hey, here's what we think, right? It clearly the market has said it's not worth whatever you got it on for. Right? It's been sitting a little bit. This is what we think. Prove us wrong.
Well, 100% to that note, Steve. If it's been sitting, and I missed that part, see, it must have been when I was blow drying my hair.
Well, it might
Like
not be
a-
sitting. I don't know. Steve didn't give us
Oh.
all the details, so maybe not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's
maybe
been
not.
sitting for sure, coming under. Absolutely.
Yeah, what's days on market,
Yeah.
Steve, and what's your
No,
feel there on
so
this one?
it literally just came on market. There was a lot of traction. I already told my buyer that their showings before us, but after us, and it was going to be hot. Obviously, he asked me, I said, my advice is you come in at, if you want this, come in at full asking, with the escalation is what I recommended. He ran the numbers with his contractor and this is where he felt. And I already prepped him
Yeah.
for the disappointment. I said, it's competitive. Someone's going to come in here and swoop this or have cheaper labor, so I expected maybe not to get it, but I was hoping obviously that they came back and said, hey, we're asking 200. We have an offer at 220. Are you going to beat that? And then he would have said no anyways, but he was hopeful that everybody was going to be a flipper. And he's like, everyone's going to be in the 180 range on this if they're flipping, because it has to be there for the ROI based on the comps.
Yeah. Well, I think though, when you've got a client like that, they got to be willing to lose here, hope that nobody does come in like the seller was hoping, right? And then 2, 3, 4 weeks on, hey, we're still here. We're still willing to do our number, right? But if this thing's brand new to market, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the flippers to pick these things up. So it doesn't hurt to get your offer in. But given everything, I would tend to agree with Chris. Brand new to market, we're coming in under the ask and then escalating over. That's going to be tough to win it. Tough to win it. But there's so many little factors that go into all of this stuff, and when to use escalation, and when to come in under, and when to ask the other agent prove it to me that your number is the right number. So these are good. These are really good discussions so that everybody can kind of hear what are the different little things that the listing agent is considering. But asking somebody to take an under ask offer first week on the market, there are very few scenarios that they're going to accept. Why accept it? Why not just wait and see? Because here's the thing: is a lot of times you'll have a buyer's agent say, "Well, we're going to walk away if you don't take this now." Really? If I come back to you in a week, right? If I let this thing play out and I come back to you in a week, your buyer doesn't want it anymore at that same number? That's hard to believe, right? If they don't want it at the same number in a week, were they going to back out of this deal if I took it? So these are some of the games and some of the, you got to figure out, right? It's all a negotiation. Who has the leverage? Any other thoughts on this one? Great share, Steve. Let's change topics. Who's got something else? Who's got something weird going on in a deal? What'd you learn? What do you want to share with the group? Well, I am going to share a communication strategy with you guys. I am really been loving Ask Vin and his communication stuff. I think he's a great follow on social. And I think as we try and level up our game, communication and your communication skills are extremely important. I think these are, we do our script and role plays. We have our AI bots that we can practice with, but really leveling up can be the difference between the top producers and the people that are just getting by or that don't make it. And there's so many different little things that you can do to improve your communication. And I've been following Vin quite a bit, and I've got a bunch of his stuff kind of teed up for us to take a look at. But let's start with this one. Let's see here. Get this right. This is the art of the pause. Let's listen.
You pause. The first thing is you give people time to process what you're saying. Notice how when I pause, it gives you a chance to process the information. Whereas what people don't realize, when you don't pause, you don't give people any time to process anything that you've said. And as a result of that, there's no clarity in that communication. Because if I just keep talking about all the vocal foundations, I go from rate of speech to volume, and I don't really stop after any moments at all, and I just keep going through, after a while, you don't get an opportunity to pause, and you don't get an opportunity to process anything that I've said. Therefore, after a while, everything just becomes a bunch of information. Nothing really sticks out, nothing was highlighted, you don't even know what you're meant to be listening to. When I pause intentionally to give you time to breathe in the lesson, to be able to process it. Second foundation for the pause, if you don't become comfortable with the pause, your speech will be littered with non-words and filler words. Non-words are the sounds we make to fill the silence. And filler words are the words we use to fill the silence. And so, do you know what I mean? We fill our speech with it. So, for example, if I wasn't comfortable with the pause, and as I was going through, do you know what I mean? When I get through to, do you know what I mean? When I get, and do you know what I mean? It's called verbal clutter. And when you've got lots of ums and ahs, what it does is it decreases the clarity of your message dramatically. When you pause, the first...
So I think there's just so many different times that we can use this in our real estate careers. And I think I am more of I'm going to tell you everything. I'm going to drive home my points. Too much driving, too much type A, especially listing presentation, first buyer presentation, right? Meeting people. I'm probably a little bit too overbearing. And I think if I can just get this into my normal cadence, just to pause, especially when I'm trying to really get a point through, and then see how they react, let them say something. I think I can develop my communication better. So this one hit home for me. Anybody feel like they are really good at this, or is this something that you think you can easily put into your game? Do we have any thoughts around the pause? Is anybody actually mentally thinking about this when they're going into new conversations, whether that's listing appointment, meeting a buyer for the first time? Who's got some thoughts? Steve.
So I've only done the buy side to date, but what I've learned, because I always ask for feedback, if somebody goes somewhere else or they had another agent and stuff, and what I'm just trying to be mindful of is sometimes maybe talking less and just listening more when you're at these, and let them, kind of guide it, rather than. So I had some feedback. I was asking about the wood floors, for example, and they needed to be redone. So I asked them, I said, what do you think about the wood floors? Is that a deal breaker for you? And then I kind of mentioned, yeah, I said, you can get these done, redone pretty, price per square foot's pretty reasonable. I said, they'll look like brand new. And the feedback I got was they thought that I was trying to sell the house to them, which I didn't think it was a winner at all based on the basement itself and the kitchen. But and I'm sitting here and I'm like, I have to be mindful of what other people are taking my words, and sometimes maybe talk less. So maybe I should have just said, what do you think about the wood floors, and left it at that and let them talk, rather than putting in my 2 cents of, you can get these redone, because they took that as I was trying to sell them that house and I'm the buyer's agent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when you ask that question, right, just to kind of get a feel for where they sit, and then go into the education, right? So I think it's asking the question, then it's the pause, right? So it's not just asking to ask; it's asking to actually listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth, right? Listen, but then you got to educate. That's our role as agents, is we've got to educate, but we got to see, what are they thinking. And I think that pause can really help. The famous story that I always tell around the ask is my first mentor in real estate told me, always ask for the offer. You just never know. And I just felt like that was a little bit pushy, right? And he told me a story, a property they went into. People just could not stop saying enough bad stuff about the house, right? And so he got in his car, he went off, maybe there was a second showing, or they call up later, hey, we want to make an offer on that. Like, just blown away, blew his mind, didn't even think to ask. about the offer, right? So just trying to understand a little bit more about what their thought process is. Hey, doesn't sound like this property was going to be a good fit for you, but I just have to ask, just want to make sure, right? Nothing that you'd want to make an offer on, right? Because sometimes when you don't love a property, you might still be loving it at a lower price, right? And so if we've got something that's sitting for a little bit, hey, you know what? Maybe you don't love it at this price, but you seem to like the neighborhood. You seem to like the yard. Yes, I know it needs a lot of work. So I think asking those questions and just kind of seeing, like you said on the wood floors, just what'd you think of the floors? What'd you think of the house? Just trying to get a little bit of a feel, but then you've still got to educate, right? I know you were complaining about a lot of these little things, but it's been sitting for 3 weeks. We might be able to come in a little lower. So yeah, Chris, I love that. What's holding you back on this property, right? That's really a great question to throw out to people, right? Because a lot of times we're guessing. We think we might know, but we don't know, right? Because if we can get them to say, we love it, but, then we can go, maybe we can get it for cheaper. Maybe we can get them to fix that. Maybe we can do a rehab loan, right? So that's great advice. If you leave this call with anything, use that. What's holding you back on this property? And if it's something that you just can't fix, then there's nothing we can do. Just don't love this neighborhood. Man, I just didn't think this street was going to be as busy as it is. Okay. Martin.
Actually had that happen to me this weekend where same thing. The boyfriend, this has to be done. This has to be done. Everything was completely negative. And she calls me on Monday morning, say, yeah, I want to make an offer. I'm like, oh, okay.
That shows you who wears the pants, Martin.
Trust me, I know. I've been married for 21 years. So yeah, trust me, I know.
All right, guys, we are right up against the hour here. Let me get the quick calendar up. Learning opportunities today, the Investor Agent Playbook, close more transactions and build wealth, Facebook and Instagram listing system, a live session, Mastering Physical Mail, a powerful strategy for client acquisition. It's interesting. And another live session, New Year, New Habits, New Finances with Christine Valdez. So these are some new ones that we haven't seen before. So some really good opportunities. Take a class, learn something, come back and share it. Hope you guys have an amazing Wednesday. Appreciate all the contribution today and making this call a great one. We'll do it again and start your morning the best way to start your day in real estate tomorrow. Take care.
Steve, we have
Thank
our
you.
Real Connect meeting today.
Yes, Real Connect is what
That's
time
a
on
big
that?
one. Yeah,
What time?
that's at 1:00, and that's a
1
big
o'clock.
one. He's going to say where Rise is going to be, and Sharon's going to say other stuff, I guess.
Yep, that's a big one. 1
Yeah.
o'clock, Real Connect. All right, guys, have an awesome Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank